So I'll actually again let's stick to Steve Jobs. No, you always connect the dots looking backward. But it's so true.
And being an engineer, ho- does it help in your day-to-day role of consulting?
Yeah.
What is the general queries that you get from the academic people or college students and professional people? When you are into consulting role, having this traveling experience, does it help you in any way in your day-to-day job? So now when you're helping them, helping students, so what is the normal process that you follow when you start a conversation with them? Do you have a process that you follow first of all, and if yes, then what is the process? First of all, when you if you can tell how a normal student or a candidate who is looking out for a job or internship, how he can use LinkedIn to
Hmm.
achieve that goal. Hello, guys. Hi, this is Ganesh Nayak. Welcome back to one of our podcasts where we talk to international students, where we talk to corporate people and get an understanding about what is happening in the industry. Okay, and with the similar thought process, we are starting out with today's podcast. So meet Akshat. Akshat is a super smart strategist and also a great mentor, and he's helping companies. He's also helping candidates, okay, to succeed in their career. Okay, he's going to be talking about his journey in the corporate side, where he's working right now, what is his profile right now, and also he will be touching upon his area of interest, which is guiding students, love for traveling. And he's also going to be talking about his experience about traveling to variety of countries. So let us start with the interview. First of all, Akshat, thank you very much for taking out time and talking to us. If for the benefit of the audience, if you can give us a brief about you and your journey till now.
Sure, sure. No, thanks a lot, Ganesh, for that beautiful introduction and for calling me super smart. That was super nice. Uh, but yes, talking about my journey, so I think it's the typical Indian student. No, I did engineering, I did electronics and communication. Absolutely hated it. Knew that I want to do anything other than that,
Okay.
and it was sort of an exploratory thing where I tried out a bunch of different things from data science to marketing, sales, till I finally eventually landed on strategy and consulting side of things, and that's the thing that really stuck with me. And then COVID hit, and I did a bunch of consulting internships at places like EY and KPMG.
Okay.
Started my campus consulting club. Boom, boom, boom. Eventually went to INSEAD. And post that, I'm now currently at Novo Nordisk, working as an IO business graduate, which is a super vague business title. But the idea is that it has 8-month rotations. Right
Okay.
now, I'm doing marketing in India. In 2 months' time, I'll be heading off to Denmark, where I'll be doing corporate strategy. And then after
Okay.
that, it's 8 months somewhere else where I'll be doing, I don't know what yet. So, yeah,
Wonderful.
that's a brief of my journey so far.
So you started out as an engineering candidate. Okay. Now from there, if you can throw some light on how did you ended up entering into the management side,
Hmm.
the business management side.
Yeah. No, so I think, I mean, like I already said at the start, right? Everybody who's in engineering, most people end up disliking it. So the way that evolution happened is you try out a bunch of different things,
Hmm.
right? Put it very bluntly, just trying things out.
Hmm.
And in that spirit, I was trying out things like coding, which I realized I didn't like. I also tried getting into the hardware part, which I hated even more. So it was a jump here and there till I got into data science. Now, data
Okay.
science seemed to be a good fit, right? Because it had that sort of technical aspect to it, that
Right.
strategic decision making. At the same time, it had the business communication and, more so of the, I don't know, in my mind, non-engineering stuff at that point of time. So I enjoyed it for a bit, and then I realized that what, actually, this is the stuff that I enjoy more. This, just thinking about business problems and breaking them down to their knuckles and then taking them on.
Okay.
That is the aspect I enjoyed most, and I think that realization is what sort of made me pivot to this direction. And glad I made that decision.
Okay. So you basically did your masters only because you thought that okay, I want to move towards the core strategy side or core consulting side. Correct?
Mhm. Yes and no, in the sense that yes,
Okay.
I was very clear that I want to go there. But the reasons for doing the masters, it was a very go with the flow thing.
Gotcha.
And the thing is that INSEAD was just one of those places that always very much appealed to me because I like this idea of having two different campuses. I like this idea of being surrounded by people from so many nationalities,
Okay.
and just I read their papers, and it was my dream school, honestly. And
Okay.
yeah, it worked out, and then I had that offer in hand, and of course I was thinking from a long term perspective that yes, I want to get into core strategy, this will help with that, that's all. But at the other
Okay.
time, it was just like I have this amazing opportunity to be at my dream business school.
Okay.
I should take it.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now, for the audience, so we have been talking since the start that you are doing strategy. So,
Yeah.
for a simple a student who is doing, say, a BMS or a bachelor's, how would you explain what exactly you are doing in a
Mhm.
simple language?
Mhm. See, it's a very fun question because they say you always ask a consultant what they do, and then they go into this gambling on thing. But very fundamentally, the idea is that any business you're running, they're
Hmm.
going to have good things, they're going to have problems.
Hmm.
The idea is that you have to keep the good things going. You need to capitalize on them, really maximize the value you can get out of them.
Okay.
And with the bad things, you need to figure out ways to fix them.
Okay.
That is the essence of strategy. So I know it's very basic. It's a very high
No, no,
level overview.
it's a good reference, but
Yeah,
digging deep into that question, so it can be the problems can be financial, or it can be HR related, it can be operational, so it can be anything. It's a general consulting that we are talking about.
correct, correct. And most of the time, you know what's going wrong. You don't know why it's going wrong. Now it could be a finance issue.
Okay.
It could be an HR issue. It could be a supply chain issue. You never know, and that is your job. You have to find out why it's happening, and then of course how you fix it.
Okay, wonderful. One more additional question to this. So on an average, suppose you get an assignment to work with some company. So on an average, how much time generally you spend, say 1 month, 2 months, on an average on a particular
Mhm.
company?
Yeah, I think most assignments are 2 to 3 months for me.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but of course, this varies a lot. There are a lot of clients out there who go for 8 months or 1 year of engagements. That's always there. But
Okay.
typically, it's 2 to 3 months because the idea is to figure out what's going wrong. And mostly for the implementation side, or actually fixing that, you give your suggestions, but then the execution of it, that's often done by the client.
Okay, and you also become specialized into one sector. Like for example, I will do only consulting to pharma companies, like that.
Mhm. I think that happens at a later stage in your career. Once you've done it for a lot of years, that's when it happens. Of course,
Okay.
it can happen at any time. You can right now. I can choose to say that I'll only do it for pharma companies, and it can happen now.
Okay.
But the idea is that I personally enjoy the generalism of it.
Okay. Wonderful. And being an engineer, ho- does it help in your day-to-day role of consulting? That means your
Mhm.
engineering background.
Definitely, I would say, see, and the thing is, I wouldn't just say it's engineering. I feel that
Okay.
regardless of your background, because it's such a you asked me what I do, right? And I gave you a very generic answer. That's because it is a generic role, and it requires a bunch of skill sets that are very varied, that are very distinctive. So
Okay.
yes, my engineering background definitely helps. It helps me, especially when I'm looking with dealing with data, right? Because I did this data science thing, so now I get a better understanding of what to do with it.
Okay.
But then, somebody would say something completely different of engineering, say a master's in English,
Hmm.
uh, their articulation, their verbal and written communication, that is far superior to mine. And that is something that helps them actually sell that solution to the client. So I believe that
Okay.
regardless of your background, there's a lot you can do, and you have these unique skill sets. You need to just capitalize on your strengths and, build towards the weaknesses because it's always a journey, right?
Wonderful. So just a thought. So like Steve Jobs said, now you have to connect the dots, and you will not understand it at the start, but when you reach at the end, you realize what exactly happened to you and why it happened to you. For example, data science that happened to you was actually helping you in the consulting role. Something very different.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, next question. So, while going through your LinkedIn profile, also and initial discussions that we had, so you are also helping candidates to enter into top tier colleges in their internships. So, first of all, how did it started?
Mhm. So I'll actually again, let's stick to Steve Jobs. No, you always connect the dots looking backward. But it's so true. And essentially the way it started is, initially it started very informally. It started just as a way of me sharing what I'm doing, and whether it's working, whether it's not working, what I'll do different, things like that.
Okay.
And then I thought, let's formalize this, right? Let's give a structure to it.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, the idea is that I enjoy doing this, right? I like helping people, and it gives me a great deal of satisfaction when somebody I'm helping out succeeds, more so
Right.
than me succeeding. It's nicer to see that happen. So it gives me a great deal of satisfaction when that happens. And essentially I realized that because I've been to these places, right? I went to INSEAD, which is one of the best business schools in the world. I've
Right.
done internships at all the sort of big fours and all. I realized that there are things that I've understood about this whole process that I can now share with other people, especially in a time like this when the job market is in a very bad condition.
Right.
So I think that's how it started and formalized essentially.
Okay. So now when you're helping them, helping students, so what is the normal process that you follow when you start a conversation with them? Do you have a process that you follow first of all? And if yes, then what is the process?
Yeah, I think one thing you must have already understood by now is I keep things very simple and straightforward. So my process is also just like that, right? The
Okay.
first step is actually I just shut up and I listen, and I actually genuinely listen to
Okay.
understand really what is going on, right? What's happening in your life at this point? What is
Hmm.
the ambition, right? What's just everything? Tell me everything is the idea. And then
Okay.
after I've listened and gotten a sense of the current situation and the future ambition, I question them on it. Is this actually your present situation? Is this actually your goal? Why is this your goal? Right? What are the steps you're taking towards this goal? So I make them really think and introspect, because see, at the end of the day, I can say whatever, but the person has to
Hmm.
sit and they have to actually act on it. And the only way to make them act on it is if it comes from within, and it comes from within when you introspect. So that's what
Okay.
I do. I make them introspect. And then of course I it's not like it's just you sitting there and introspecting while I'm just twiddling my thumbs here. I give you a very step by step things to do. And when I say step by step, I mean in the sense that what you should be doing today and what you should be doing, tomorrow, 1 week. That kind of granularity. Because there's no
Okay.
point in making a whole 3 month, 3 year plan, right? You want day by
Hmm.
day, step by step kind of plan. So I think that's the overall approach I take, regardless of whether you're coming to me for business school admissions or landing off campus jobs and internships.
Okay. Okay. Great. So now I think so roughly you've guided almost more than 1,000 students till now. That's the understanding I have. What is one common advice which you have been giving to everybody, which regardless of their situation, which you say you find that this advice will help them? What is that one advice?
Hmm. It's a good question. So yes, firstly, a disclaimer that it's very context specific, very person specific. But the one thing that I tell everybody is that you have to think like a salesperson, because
Okay.
all of this job searching and business school admissions and all, fundamentally it's all sales, right? And to give you some context, to give you maybe an example around it, if you're a salesperson and you go door to door and you knock on 200 doors,
Hmm.
199 of them will just open the door and then shut it on your face. Right? It's that one maybe who listen, and even by listening there's no guarantee that they won't shut it on your face, right? They'll just listen. That's all that's guaranteed. In many ways that's exactly like job hunting, right? Because you send your resumes to so many places,
Hmm.
and they don't get back, or maybe they do get back, but then nothing really happens, things don't move forward. So you need that grit, that resilience to heat hote hain na salesman, that they keep
Hmm.
going and
Hmm.
they don't stop. You need to understand how to the human psychology essentially, that how do you sell, again, just another example, how do you sell the benefits more than the features? So for example, in your resume, people often put in list of things, and then their job description, right? This is what I did. But that isn't what sells, right? No product is coming at you with these are our features and you buying them. They sell the
Hmm.
benefits. This is what it
Right.
does. It gives you
Right.
X amount of time. So that applies to your resume as well. So I think the one common piece of advice is always think like a salesperson. Approach it with that mindset, and you'll find that things start making a lot more sense.
Okay. And you have been traveling to variety of countries. So how many countries have you traveled till now?
I say I don't have an exact count, but I think it must be 20 plus as of this point.
Okay. And this 20 plus is both official travel and your leisure travel also, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you're into consulting role, having this traveling experience, does it help you in any way in your day-to-day job?
No, I believe traveling is just one of those things that helps you, regardless of the role you're in. And let me just say, like, one thing that it does, right? Let's not complicate and talk about all the benefits of traveling. The one thing that it does is it helps you understand people better.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you know, there's this bias that we have. So, an education system, right? You grow up and you're told 1 + 1 = 2, and it's a fact of life, and you take it and you move ahead with it.
Right.
But as I'm sure you know, in the real world, problems are a lot messier, right? There's no one right answer. There's always 100 different ways you could go about it. Now, the
Right.
way you choose to go about it is your decision. It's your thinking, your background, what you've studied, things like that.
Hmm.
Somebody else might think about it differently. The third person thinks differently, and the idea is that the best solution emerges when you put like the most minds on it, right? The most unique minds on it, so you get like a very holistic solution. Now, what traveling does to you is it makes you more open-minded. So now you have your own background, you have your own upbringing, and
Right.
then somebody contradicts it. Somebody says something completely opposite. Your first reaction is you'll get defensive, like,
Hmm.
what is this? How can they say that? But what traveling does is it explains to you how they can say that, because you understand the way they've led their lives, right? And you
Hmm.
understand the way they think now. And as a consequence of that, you can sit in a room with all this diverse crowd of people and make smarter decisions. So I think that's what traveling does. It opens up your mind so you are more empathetic, and you end up becoming better at problem solving and decision making, which is a useful skill regardless of whatever you're doing.
Okay. Wow. Wonderful. This was a very good point that you highlighted, because like you said, we are not ready, or we are not even trained to understand or take criticism in a positive way, or how
Yeah.
it can help us. We just want to prove our point, and that generally happens when you go to companies also, you work. But definitely traveling, one thing that, like you said, opens up the mind. That's a very good point. Now coming to the LinkedIn part, because you also started your journey with respect to guiding students through LinkedIn, correct? So first of all, when you if you can tell how a normal student or a candidate who is looking out for a job or internship, how he can use LinkedIn to
Hmm.
achieve that goal.
Got it. See, when it comes to using LinkedIn, really, there's two ways, and I'm going to throw these two fancy words, but there is nothing fancy about them. It's inbound and outbound.
Okay.
Outbound is you reaching out to people, and
Uh-huh.
inbound is people reaching out to you.
Hmm.
Now, as a student, you won't get inbound, right? Because there's
Hmm.
many other students. Nobody has any motivation to reach out to you,
That's
but you
correct.
will do a lot of outbound, right? You
Hmm.
will reach out to recruiters and HRs and things like that. So as a student, your mindset should be using LinkedIn for that. Think of it as another email, but this is an email where you can add more personality to yourself, because with an email
Right.
you'll just an email ID, right? But with this, let's say I send you a message, you can click on my profile and get to know more about me.
That's correct.
So that is how you should think of LinkedIn as a student. Now onto this you can add many layers. And when I say layers, I mean, okay, you have your profile, you like completely optimize it, and you have a certain dream role in mind, so you ensure you speak that language. So you
Hmm.
have put it perfectly optimized LinkedIn profile. That's step one. Then step two is reaching out to these people. So who do you reach out to, and how do you
Hmm.
reach out to them in a way that they actually respond, right? And then the third thing could be creating content. So this is you essentially preparing yourself for inbound. So when you put something out there and let's say somebody, a recruiter, reads it, then that is a possibility that they can reach out to you. But then what will you write that'll make them reach out to you? So if
Okay.
you just sort of dissect the questions that I'm bringing up right now, these are all sales questions. It's all very,
Hmm.
how do you optimize for this? How do you drive conversions? How do you increase
You're
reach?
right. Right.
Which
Right.
brings me back to the point of thinking like a salesperson, even more so in LinkedIn. And I think that's how you can best use it as a student.
Okay. Now, adding to this previous discussion, so if, like you said, what you write in that outbound email or outbound message that is going out, can you give us
Yeah.
some example? That
Mhm.
means which will basically help the audience understand what is the shift in their mindset that is needed.
Hmm. Hmm. No, no, no. Thank you for that question. It's a great one. So for cold outreach, right? And I have a whole template on this out there as well. But
Okay.
the basic principle is that you have to be short, simple, and sweet.
Hmm.
Short in the sense that you're reaching out to a stranger, so the person doesn't know you, so they don't want to hear a life story. simple in the sense that you don't want to confuse them with jargon or overcomplicate things, because any which ways it's your first contact, they don't know you, let's not clutter their mind more. And
Okay.
sweet in the sense that they're doing you a favor by even opening your mail, right? So don't have any lofty expectations or put anybody in an uncomfortable position.
Hmm.
Say please, say thank you, little things that go a long way. So this is the 3S I followed. Now coming to the body itself, right? You need to talk about who you are very briefly, right? Like a one liner. And when you talk about who you are, you need to very clearly communicate your unique value proposition,
Yes.
which could be something like, let's say I went to INSEAD, so that's something that's very unique about me.
Hmm.
When I apply to jobs here, or let's say you don't have that institutional kind of thing, then it could be a particular skill set that you built. So
Right.
let's say copywriting. Let's say you've worked on multiple copywriting projects, so that becomes
Hmm.
a unique value proposition. So think about sort of that one thing you bring to the table and use that in your introduction. Now the next step becomes why you're reaching out to them, right? And why you're reaching out, that part everybody covers. Oh, yeah, I'm looking for internships, blah blah blah. That everybody covers. But why particularly to them, right? Why are you in my
Okay.
inbox and not in the inbox of the other 300 employees of this company, right?
Okay.
So that is where you have to establish a similarity. So it could be something as maybe that person is an alumni of your institution, strong similarity, right? It could be
Okay.
something just like, let's say you watch football and I watch football, right? And I
Hmm.
just did my research and I figured out that you like FC Barcelona and I also like FC Barcelona. Then there you go. That's why I saw you watch football a lot and we both support the same team. So it seems
Oh,
like we're
okay.
similar interests and things like that. So it's a very unique way of just making the why them part also very strong. And then you have that, and then you have your essentially your CTA. So this is where you have to be very concrete, very specific. Oh, don't ask them for like 2 hours of their time. Ask for a 15-minute chat. Give them specific time slots. At 4 p.m. today or 5 p.m. tomorrow, and
Wow.
that's sort of how you construct it. I have a whole template and all available as well that it's out there. But this is the basic idea. It's all very sales driven.
Okay. Okay. One or two things which I really liked in this entire thing, that the unique proposition. Okay.
Hmm.
Very, very interesting, because the moment you start talking about it, okay, I've done 200 projects in Power BI. It catches your mind. That is very good. Secondly, the last CTA part, don't keep it open ended. Like you said, na, keep it very specific. Will you be available at 5 p.m.? Then he will suggest, no, I can talk at 7.
Hmm.
So that way, very, very, very interesting. Now, because see, you might be, when you're guiding students, okay, with respect to outbound part, I want to highlight one thing, and I want your opinion also. How, what do you say? How should a student or a candidate look at LinkedIn from the personal branding perspective?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what should be that thing?
Actually, I'll give you a mental health slash psychological answer and then I'll give you a business answer.
Okay.
Because the reason I sort of lead with the mental health slash psychological answer is because as students, especially, right, mental health is a very something you, because you're in this new environment in college and all, it's not easy, right? And it
Hmm.
has an impact on your mental health. And what we don't realize is how dangerous social media is, in the sense that social media is not social anymore, right? It's not just a platform for say you and me to connect. It's a consumption platform. You
Right.
sit and you open one reel and then you scroll through three, then it's 10, and before you know it, 3 hours of your day are gone. Right? So creation is your way of combating that. So now the next time you open something like Instagram or LinkedIn,
Hmm.
now the idea is, okay, I won't just consume, I'll create.
Hmm.
And that mindset shift is something that helps from a psychological standpoint in minimizing the damage that social media does to you.
Right.
But that's on a psychological note, just on a mental health note. Now, from a sort of business and a personal branding standpoint, see, I believe you need to know two things, right? You need to
Hmm.
know yourself, and you need to essentially position yourself in a way so that you know your. Sorry, wait, one. More. You need to know yourself, and you need to know your ambition, your target.
Hmm.
So when I say know yourself, again, I'm not trying to get all philosophical here, but the idea is that you should have an understanding of just the experiences you've had, things you've done,
Hmm.
and you have to connect the dots. essentially. You have to create a storyline for yourself.
Yes.
And with that storyline, of course, you have certain achievements. You want to highlight those achievements along the storyline. So anything you do, this is a blanket statement, but I believe it's true. You could give me any bunch of random experiences, and I'll tell you that there's a way you can connect them. You can connect the
Okay.
dots always.
Okay.
Is my
Okay.
belief, right? Now you do that and you connect the dots. So you have a certain story, and your personal branding is that story, right? That storyline that you have and the achievements that you have. But that's from the your side of it. Now let's say you have a fixed target as well. Let's say you want to really just get into strategy consulting, or
Hmm.
any particular finance roles or things like that. Then it's like, okay, I know myself, I have my story, I have my achievements, but is that what a finance person would want to see, right? What would a finance person want to see? What do their stories look like? How do I make my story sound more similar to theirs? So this is
Hmm.
you thinking like your target, your prospect, or your customer, your client. Again, sales terms. And the idea is your personal brand is your journey, your experiences, plus the experiences slash journeys of those you want to
Want to
be,
become. Want to become. Okay.
want to become, putting those two together and putting that image of yourself out there.
Wonderful. But good summary of what exactly a personal brand should be. And this is applicable to every student, every candidate, even if you're working in the industry and you want to change stream. So your story should connect like that. But a lot of times what happens, see, a lot of people also come to me and say, I tell them that go and start being active on LinkedIn, post something, put your opinion, but they
Yeah,
always feel that what should I write, because I want to go into risk management. What should I write? Should I talk about lot of gyan? Okay, or should I talk about, like you said, something connected to my story? So have you
yeah.
faced such kind of queries in your sessions, and how do you deal with that, or what suggestion do you give them?
I mean, not only have I faced these queries, I've faced these things myself. Right? I mean, it's all
Okay.
it's all there, and I believe it's applicable. See, again, another thing that happens is students tend to think that it's only them, right? But it's not. It's applicable for somebody with 20, 30 years of experience as well. They're
Hmm.
asking themselves the very same question of what should I actually post? What should I put out there? And
Okay.
I believe it's an experimental journey, right? So educational content, jo gyan hai, that is the easiest place to start because that's the most natural way that comes to us, right?
Hmm.
Most intuitive and easiest way to get started. And I think sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you just need to get started.
Okay.
So maybe if you feel just comfortable with educational content, start with that. Just put out gyan, do that.
Hmm.
Then you'll realize while you're putting out this gyan, you'll come across somebody else's post who's doing it, but who's doing it in a interesting way, who's like adding a bit of humor to it or an element of storytelling to it. And that is when you reflect and you look back at your content and you say, okay,
Hmm.
how can I make this more readable? How can I make this more appealing to the audience? And
Right.
that is when you take it from education to say fun education or just informative. And then from there again maybe you think, okay, I ज्ञान हो गया but ये तो सिर्फ risk management it's very fixed in that, right? I'm not able to give away elements of my personality. And then from there you
Hmm.
can move on to the personal stories part of it where you share your day to day, right? uh, just experiences of the industry, how you landed your first risk management internship, things like
Hmm.
that. And then it goes to one more level where you can make it very just very personal, in the sense that you talk about your background and your upbringing and how that has influenced you. So my
Okay.
idea is is I can the idea is that you should just get started honestly and experiment along the way to see what works for you. As far
Right.
as the types of content are concerned, I think there's educational, like you very rightly mentioned, that's a very common one. There's inspirational,
Hmm.
because you motivate people to do certain things, you give them hope. That
Hmm.
is something that you find a lot of on LinkedIn. There is also entertainment, like the one
Hmm.
that I posted today. It was
Okay.
a mix of inspirational and entertainment because
Okay.
it's about Oscars, which is like a trending entertainment trend.
Hmm.
At the same time, it's inspirational because Robert Downey Jr.'s journey is truly inspirational. So this is something that it has nothing to do with me, right? This whole story, but it's out
Hmm.
there. But the post yesterday that I had, that was educational, uh, The post before that was all about me, my journey.
Okay.
So as you can see, I do a mix. I recommend people do a mix as well. But you get started with whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll just summarize this entire point that you mentioned. If you want to win the game, you have to be in the game. So start the journey and start talking. Then only you will become somebody who is very good at writing on LinkedIn. If you don't start, just wait for the right time to do it. You'll never be able to do it. You'll never be able to go to that level, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So now one query which generally I find, okay, so with respect to your consulting space or with respect to your guidance space, okay, do you enjoy guiding college students or do you enjoy guiding professionals? Because both
Hmm.
have different mindset. So
Yeah.
this one point, enjoying part, and what is the major query they have, both the
Hmm.
side of people.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Hmm. Enjoyment, I would say, if you really just put a gun to my head and asked me to answer, I would say more so college students than
Okay.
professionals, because with professionals, there is a whole experience gap that sometimes comes in, right?
Okay.
Because when somebody comes into me with more experience than I have, then I have to grapple with that angle of it, because
Hmm.
it's not. See, if somebody has, like, I'll give you an example, right? There was this one person who I had on call. Uh, he had 20-25 years of experience, and I don't even know why he reached out to me, because I clearly don't have that much. Uh, and one of the very first things I said is, I don't know why you reached out to me. Clearly you have so much more experience than me. You've seen more of this than me. So yeah, I'm very curious. And
Hmm.
then we got to talking, and you know we figured it out. But essentially, it's a mental barrier in my head that I'm trying to resolve. Right, somebody with a lot of experience, I tend to get a bit. They already know so much. What can I tell them? Right. So that's why I enjoy more with college students, because in that case, I believe I can genuinely add value. I enjoy places where I can genuinely add value, which I believe is the case with college students. With professionals who have
Okay.
a lot more experience than I do, it's a bit scary for me at times. But it's something that I'm
Hmm.
working on, because, well,
Okay.
that's how it is sometimes.
Okay.
Uh,
And
yeah.
what is the general queries that you get from the academic
Yeah.
people or college students and professional people?
So with the professional people, it's mostly around career pivots. So they're doing something and they want to do something else,
Hmm.
and most of them are considering business school for that. So most of our discussions are
Okay.
centered around that, making that pivot or making that jump, not
Okay.
necessarily through business schools, but just as a general example that I give.
Hmm.
With college students, it's a lot more varied, I would say.
Hmm.
If I had to talk about one particular challenge that pops up a lot, it's this whole cold outreach thing. Because I
Okay.
believe, just how it is, right? Companies come on campus and we sit for placements, and that's that.
Hmm.
But that's not how it is, right? At least not right now, when companies are not coming on campus. And that's not how it is in places outside India, where you're supposed to actually look for your own jobs. That's not
Right.
the case when, 2-3 years down the line, you're looking for a pivot. You won't have companies coming to you, then you have to reach out.
Right.
So that mindset shift from, okay, companies are coming to campus, to, oh, I actually have to, reach out to these
Reach out.
companies, make that. I think that's the biggest challenge that I see among the college students.
Hmm.
It's mostly coming from a place of not knowing how to do it, right? Because that's just how our education system is structured. We get companies on campus, but now people are realizing that's not how it works, not all the time. And the
Hmm.
importance of looking off campus. I think that's the one I get the most among college students.
Okay. And general, if you can tell some general skill sets
Hmm.
somebody needs, and I'm now talking from the perspective of professionals, if they
Yeah.
want to do a pivot, okay,
Hmm.
to specific areas which they have not worked till now. So, any general skill set which you would recommend, two or three, that you should
Yeah.
ideally have?
See, I believe there's this term called transferable skills. Whatever you're
Okay.
doing, you have a bunch of skills involved. Then
Hmm.
whatever you want to be doing, there's a bunch of skills involved. But there are core skills that remain the same, which is the question you're asking me, right? What are these
Hmm.
transferable skills? They're going to sound vague, but and they are vague, but the way you communicate them, the way you put them out, that is
Hmm.
something that can make a whole world of difference. So the first one is 110% communication, because that is something that's pervasive regardless of whatever you're doing, right? Like you
Hmm.
will have to talk to people and you will have to convince them of your ideas and you will have to get everybody on board. That is all communication, both verbal and written.
Okay.
So that's a transferable skill. Now, how do you really show it? Of course, it's there on your resume. You can't just really say, "Oh, I'm a great communicator." That's not how it works. You have to show it in your writing, right? So in the cold emails, for example, you're sending out, you have to show it in your interviews, the way your body language is, the way you're smiling, the way your hands are moving, and just general things like that to really solidify the point that communication is there. So that's the one transferable skill that I observe. The second
Okay.
one I would say is adaptability. Let's actually not adaptability, just this mindset to always keep learning.
Hmm.
So this is again something that you can't really put on your resume, right? That, oh, I was learning, I was learning, I was learning. But
Hmm.
the way you sort of show it is with proactiveness. So let's say right now you're working in team X,
Hmm.
right? And you're doing projects of team X. But then you reach out to team Y as well. And you reach out to team Z as well. And you maybe, do some side projects with them. So that is
Right.
something that shows that, you take that initiative, you have that drive to, do more than what is given to you.
Right.
That is something that no company will come to you and be like, we don't want you doing more.
Hmm.
Right?
Ideally, yes, yes, that's correct.
Always want more people. So that sort of, I think, drive is the second sort of transferable skill. And the third would probably be around documentation, which is an interesting one.
Okay.
But I say documentation because an area where a lot of companies sort of need help is you have people doing the day to day things, but nobody has a standard operating procedure or a process that is followed behind it.
Right.
So if you communicate to the company that, okay, you know what, I'm good at documenting things, I'm good at documenting processes,
Hmm.
that makes it very valuable regardless of whatever role you're doing. It's applicable in coding, it's applicable in finance, it's
Right.
applicable. So
Startups
it's in
also.
startups, so it's
Yeah.
best place, most applicable.
Right.
Yeah. So these
So
three things, I think, yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. I'll just like to add to the last point. So
Yeah.
when I'm also running my company, I challenge a lot. I face a lot of challenge with respect to how to first of all set up a process and
Hmm.
then creating controls for those processes. That okay,
Right.
if somebody leaves, the process will still work. So a lot of people which are there in the market, first of all, they are not able to think in that manner.
Hmm.
Second, even if they're able to think, they're not skilled enough to create that the
Hmm.
entire
Hmm.
structure and do it. So I think so. This point is applicable to every organization where you can
Yeah.
go and work. That's very true. Now, one thing that I would also touch upon is that if you have a global exposure now with respect to working abroad, interacting with people. So if somebody who's looking out to move out of India, okay, what is there any advice that you can tell them, or is there a way that he can approach his journey of
Hmm.
going
Hmm.
abroad in terms of working abroad, basically?
Yeah. See, it's fundamentally not very, like, I know this isn't an optimistic answer, but the way it is you study abroad, you work abroad. That is how it is as things stand. With
Okay.
that being said, that's the easiest path. Path of least
Okay.
resistance is this.
Hmm.
With that being said, of course, there's other paths. You work with international clients, you create your networks there, and you can work abroad. But
Okay.
that is more applicable. So I think the key pieces of advice would be, firstly, working abroad is fair, but understand that in some places it's easier to work abroad than the others. So working abroad in the US when you haven't studied in the US is almost impossible. Not saying it's not doable, but it's going to be a lot
Tough.
of work. On the other hand, say working in Dubai,
Hmm.
because that's such a popular hotspot for Indians to go to,
Hmm.
that is something that's much more achievable. So, really keep the feasibility of your ambition in mind as well,
Hmm.
when you're going about it from the unconventional lens. The second thing would be understand that it's the biggest pain point that they have when it comes to hiring people from outside is not that they'll have to sponsor your visa and all that. I mean, of course that is, but money is not the issue.
Hmm.
The issue is that let's say you're going to Denmark, right? and we put you in an office surrounded by 99 percent Danish people, you're probably the only Indian there. Will you be able to take it? And it's actually something you need to actively think.
Yes. Yes.
You will feel that sense of loneliness, that sense of difference from everybody else.
Hmm.
Will you be able to take it? And that is something that you have to communicate very actively to companies. And the way to communicate that is, if you say, oh, I've done a lot of international projects, or I've read a lot about the culture, or I've traveled, I've personally been there. So these are aspects that sort of alleviate that concern.
Hmm.
So that's the second thing. First is, like, just keep feasibility in mind, and the second one would be understand that the biggest impairment is just that they're worried if you'll fit in or not. So you have to
Yes.
convince them, but fit in though you definitely will. Right? There might be more qualified people, all of that might be there, but you'll definitely fit in. Right?
Okay.
And the third thing I would say for folks looking for jobs abroad is it's tough. I know I said this right at the start, uh, but if you're if you're open to it, if you have the resources and the finances for it, study abroad. That makes it much more easier,
Hmm.
because then right now I'm an NCR student. It's the business school for the world, and the advantage is that I now have that branding on me, and as a
Hmm.
consequence, I can go work abroad much more
Easily.
easily than
Yes.
if I didn't have that, if I studied somewhere in India. Because then in India is where I have the advantage, not abroad. With INSEAD, I
Hmm.
have the advantage abroad, not in India. So that's the
Okay.
trade-off that you're making.
Okay, wonderful. Now, just 2 points that you mentioned. So,
Yeah.
like you were talking about the fit. So, this is more of a cultural fit
Hmm.
also that companies look at. I'll give you my experience. So, when I
Yeah.
was working for Namura, okay, they had offered me to go for Japan,
Hmm.
and they offered me for 6 months. So, the next question was why 6 months? So, my manager told me it is about that whether you will be able to fit to the Japanese culture, whether you
Sure.
will like that culture, because they don't have any problem giving you a visa for 1 year or 2 year. The only thing they are worried is if you do not like, so they don't want you to feel that pressure. That's why 6 months you try. If you're not okay, come back. So that is one thing which is very very apt. And the second point, which is applicable to India also, is that whenever people are hiring, okay, because see, every work that we are doing is not rocket science. If you
Hmm.
do 6 months, 7 months, you'll understand it. The
Yeah.
more worried any hiring manager is whether you will be able to do it,
Hmm.
whether I can take that bet on you. It's applicable to India also. Globally, there are more factors involved.
Yeah.
Regionally, it is more about whether you will stick to that work, whether you will be able to do it or not.
Hmm.
That is one thing that comes to the picture.
True.
So wonderful discussion. But I would like to I want you to summarize with one or two pointers from your side for
Hmm.
audience who's looking out to change roles, get an internship. One or two final points, and then we'll close the interview.
Sure. Sure. Hmm. I think two key takeaways that I want you to take. The first is something that I've already mentioned multiple times. That is to think like a salesperson.
Hmm.
Optimize everything. Like, you have to pitch yourself as the product to any
Hmm.
company, any business school. So really helps to think like a salesperson.
Hmm.
Second pointer, thing that I haven't mentioned yet, is that there are things in your control and there are things that are not. So a lot of students come to me and they say, the interview went so well, but I still didn't get it. And then they question themselves. Doubt starts to creep in. But
Hmm.
I ask them to wait, because it's not necessarily that your performance was bad. It's that maybe
Right.
somebody else's was better. Maybe the other candidate was the son of the CEO. Maybe the company stopped hiring altogether. You don't know these things.
Right.
So
Right.
always focus on the things that are in your control, and that is your hard work, that is your efforts. The rest, the outcomes and the successes, that'll all happen. That'll all fall into place in its own time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you, Akshat, for taking out time and talking to us and all the audience who's going to watch this podcast, and they will definitely learn a lot of things today with respect to how to approach an interview, how to approach the internship. A lot of college students are planning to do that in the near future also. So your interview is definitely going to give them motivation, and also now for the audience, if you want to get some guidance, definitely reach out to Akshat through LinkedIn. He will guide you out in terms of any query that he has, and he will talk from his experience. So that is one thing that is really really important, I feel. So thank you once again, Akshat, for taking out time and talking to us.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely my pleasure.